Shadows of inheritance. In the sprawling suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, where manicured lawns stretched like green carpets under the relentless southern sun, lived Margaret Maggie Thompson and her son, Dylan. Maggie was a widow in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a practical ponytail and eyes that held the warmth of homemade peach cobbler. She had raised Dylan alone after her husband, a truck driver named Earl, died in a freak accident on I-85 when Dylan was just 10. Maggie worked 2 jobs: days at a local diner slinging hash browns and grits, nights as a cashier at Walmart to keep their modest ranch-style house with its faded blue shutters and chain-link fence. Dylan, now 28, was the apple of her eye, or so she thought. He had grown into a handsome young man, tall like his father, with a charming smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. After high school, he attended Georgia State University on a partial scholarship, majoring in business. Maggie scrimped and saved, dipping into her meager savings and even taking out a second mortgage on the house to cover the rest. "You're gonna make something of yourself, baby," she'd say, hugging him tight after dropping him off at the dorms. Dylan graduated with honors, landing a job at a mid-tier investment firm in downtown Atlanta, dealing in real estate deals and stock portfolios. Their life seemed picture-perfect American dream material: Thanksgiving dinners with Maggie's famous cornbread stuffing, summer barbecues in the backyard with neighbors firing up the grill, and Dylan stopping by every Sunday for her pot roast. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Dylan had tasted success, the kind that came with tailored suits from Men's Wearhouse, happy hours at trendy bars in Midtown, and a girlfriend named Brittany who drove a leased BMW. Brittany was from Buckhead, Atlanta's upscale neighborhood, with parents who owned a chain of car dealerships. She introduced Dylan to a world of country club brunches, yacht parties on Lake Lanier, and whispers of old money networks. Maggie noticed the changes subtly at first. Dylan started missing Sunday dinners, citing work emergencies. His calls became shorter, his visits rarer. "Mom, I'm swamped with this big deal," he'd say over the phone, his voice echoing from what sounded like a noisy restaurant. Maggie brushed it off. She was proud of his ambition. To help him, she even co-signed a loan for his first condo in a gated community near Perimeter Mall. "Anything for my boy," she told the bank teller, her hands trembling slightly as she signed. But Dylan's ambitions grew darker. At work, he got involved in a shady real estate flip scheme. His boss, a slick operator named Vince, pulled him into deals where they'd buy foreclosed homes cheap, slap on cosmetic fixes, and sell them at inflated prices to unsuspecting buyers. It was borderline legal, but the profits were huge. Dylan justified it: "It's just business, Mom would understand if she knew." But deep down, he knew she wouldn't. Maggie had always taught him honesty, quoting Bible verses from their Baptist church days. The betrayal began innocently enough, or so Dylan told himself. Brittany's father, Mr. Hargrove, offered Dylan a spot in an exclusive investment club. "You got potential, kid," he said over cigars at the Cherokee Town Club. The club dealt in high-stakes ventures, including land development in Atlanta's booming suburbs. One opportunity stood out: a parcel of land in Maggie's neighborhood, ripe for gentrification into luxury townhomes. The catch: it included several older homes, like Maggie's, that would need to be bought out or condemned. Dylan hesitated at first. "That's where my mom lives," he confided to Brittany one night in their sleek condo, overlooking the city lights. Brittany, with her perfectly highlighted hair and designer nails, rolled her eyes. "Dylan, sweetie, it's progress. Offer her a fair price, she'll be thrilled to move to a nice retirement community." Dylan nodded, but a knot formed in his stomach. He approached Maggie over coffee at her kitchen table, the one scarred from years of family meals. "Mom, there's this development deal. They want to buy your house. It's a good offer, enough to pay off the mortgage and get you set up somewhere cozy, like those senior apartments in Decatur." Maggie laughed it off. "This house is home, Dylan. Your dad and I bought it with our savings. Memories are here: the backyard where you learned to ride your bike, the living room where we opened Christmas presents." "No thanks," Dylan pressed, but Maggie stood firm. That's when the scheme turned ugly. Vince, sensing Dylan's reluctance, pulled him aside. "Look, kid, if she won't sell, we can force it. Get creative with the paperwork. Maybe some structural issues that make the house unsafe." Dylan knew what that meant: falsifying inspection reports, bribing a city official to declare it condemned. It was fraud, but the payout was 7 figures for Dylan, enough to buy a house in Buckhead, marry Brittany, and live the life he craved. The guilt gnawed at him, but ambition won. Dylan started the process subtly. He hired a friend inspector who found termite damage and foundation cracks, exaggerated reports that Maggie never saw coming. When the city notice arrived, Maggie was devastated. "How can this be? I've maintained this place," she cried, calling Dylan in panic. He feigned surprise. "Mom, I'll help you fight it. But maybe it's time to let go." As the condemnation proceedings dragged on, Maggie's health declined. Stress from the legal battles hiring a cheap lawyer with money she didn't have led to high blood pressure and sleepless nights. Dylan visited less, claiming work, but really avoiding her pleading eyes. Brittany encouraged him, "It's for the best. She'll thank you later." The climax came at a city hall hearing. Maggie, dressed in her Sunday best, stood before the board, voice trembling. "This house is all I have left of my husband, my life. Please, don't take it." Dylan was there, supposedly supporting her, but he had already slipped the board members' incentives through Vince's connections. The ruling: condemned. Sold to the developers for a pittance. Maggie moved to a tiny apartment in a rundown complex off Memorial Drive, her belongings crammed into storage. Dylan helped her pack, but his hugs felt hollow. "I'll visit every week, Mom," he promised. But weeks turned to months. He got promoted, married Brittany in a lavish ceremony at the Atlanta Botanical Garden, and bought a McMansion with a pool. Maggie's betrayal hit hardest when she discovered the truth. A neighbor, suspicious of the quick turnaround, dug into public records and found Dylan's firm listed as the buyer. She confronted him over the phone. "You did this, my own son." Dylan denied it at first, then broke. "Mom, it was business. I was going to cut you in, but it was too late." Maggie hung up, her heart shattered. She spent her days alone, watching soap operas, her only company the hum of the air conditioner. Dylan sent checks, but she returned them. "Blood money," she wrote. Years passed. Dylan thrived: kids, vacations to Disney World, a boat on Lake Oconee. But the guilt festered like a hidden wound. At night, he'd dream of his father's accident, Maggie's tears. When she died alone in that apartment from a heart attack, Dylan attended the funeral, standing apart from the few mourners. The house was long gone, replaced by cookie-cutter townhomes. In the end, Dylan's betrayal cost him more than he gained. The American dream he chased was built on the ruins of his mother's trust, a hollow victory in the land of opportunity.